Hello. Yet another episode of Sublime Podcast, and today I have a good fellow of mine from my acting class. She's remarkable in a lot of ways. She is a young actress, and she's also doing something really interesting in the fitness, and she will talk about this. Briena Brown, who is currently graduating from the beginner class to like master prep, and I'm talking about First Take Acting School, which is I think one of the best acting schools in the Bay Area. And she's also moving to LA. So before Briena moves all the way to LA, I was able to capture her, and we are shooting whole podcast. Welcome. Why BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Why MMA? Why are you sparring? Why are you a fitness trainer? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Super excited today. And so fitness has been a really big part of my life since I was a little girl. I grew up in group activities such as like sports. So soccer, I was doing cheerleading, gymnastics, I said cheerleading, but just a whole bunch of things, right? And that's just kind of the way that my dad raised me, so that's why it's so important to me. I remember when I was little, he used to bring me to basketball courts and promised me that we'd play on the playground. And when we got there, he would bring a basketball and said I'd have to hit 7 layups in a row or else we couldn't get food. And then once I did it, we went and we got food, right? So he taught me the importance of having grit and being able to have discipline. And I feel like that concept of discipline is how fitness has translated over into acting. There are times in life where we don't want to do something and it doesn't feel good to do it. But we as human beings, we're so used to chasing instant gratification that we forget that that's not where really fulfilling things come from. Like all of the most successful actors or the most successful UFC fighters, for example, they had grit. And that is the difference between someone succeeding and someone just dreaming. So for me, I'm a personal trainer at UFC. I love it. I've been introduced into the mixed martial arts world. So I've been training kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, and I'm starting to get into some Muay Thai stuff. So that's been really fun. I'm still new in jiu-jitsu at the moment. I've been doing it for about 3 months.
That's enough of acronyms to let everyone know that despite you being so compact, right, you can kick pretty much anybody's ass. So that's don't mess with her, guys. If you meet her somewhere, in the dark valley, then it's your turn to run.
And I think that's like the fun part for me too, is that whenever I spar the people who are there, and I've met so many incredible fighters that fight at AKA, which is a huge like fighting gym that actually Khabib would fight at in San Jose. And I've met just a handful of incredible people and fighters, and to understand that fighting isn't necessarily about the way you look. It's really just about how you move, how you perform. And same thing with acting. It's not always about the way you look. It's really about like the time and energy that you put into it. So it's nice I'm over here, I'm 5'1", and I'll be rolling around and sparring with people who are like 6'5", and they never expect it. And that's my favorite part, is when they don't expect it. Yeah.
So it can be sudden.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, is it's a sport where having a visible upper hand doesn't necessarily mean that you have it. Like a lot of times smaller people in jiu-jitsu can like slide and sneak and slither their way out of places and get people in submissions without them even realizing what happened until it's over.
Oh, so remember that role I wrote for you for the Halloween?
The what?
The role the princess. What's
Oh
what's
yeah,
the name?
Princess and Mabilis. Mabilis.
Mabilis, yeah. So
Yes.
Mabilis in Filipino means quick. So I think I didn't know that, you're talking about the speed and being agile, which comes together with physical characteristics, and how much it matches, your character.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that too. I was like, oh, Prince is quick. Like
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah. I guess you're part of some gym, right? So if you want to give like promos to the gym, you can mention the name and maybe some like websites and Instagram handle. We'll put it, somewhere below.
Yeah, so check out, I currently work at UFC Gym Sunnyvale. So if you ever want to swing by and check out some classes, we do kickboxing, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, DUT, which is basically high-intensity interval training. I teach those classes, so come through. And yeah, we have a whole open gym as well. So it's a really cool place for people to experience what a real fighting gym feels like, and doesn't necessarily mean they need to fight. They can just come through and lift some weights.
Yeah, so it's a place where you can do anything, right?
Yeah,
From getting your ass kicked to like just trying to get stronger, generally, and more healthy. Cool. Sounds like a fun place to be.
it is fun.
Yeah.
A lot of really sweet people there who I was like super nervous to try out Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because of the idea that I'm so small. How am I going to succeed in mixed martial arts if I don't have the upper hand, just like being small? And yeah, a lot of them encouraged me to come out, and now they're being patient with me, and that's why I love it so much. It's not just the sport itself, but the people who are there.
Yeah, so it's a lot about like fighting your maybe inner demons, inner fears, and I think being compact or small as you call yourself actually was additional motivation for you to actually get good at something.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
So,
and I think it relates. I mean, I'm always going to relate it back to acting because I see art as mimicking it. Art and life, they're so hand in hand, and art cannot be created if you don't pull inspiration from life. So I always relate it to that, but I think that being in a gym and in a sport or doing something physical, it's never about the way you look. And I want to always emphasize that, because before I got into acting, I used to do activism, and I was on the board of the NAACP and speaking in front of hundreds of people and organizing protests and just doing so much that involved the look of me, the way that I looked and spoke, and making sure that everything was perfect. That I forgot that life isn't supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be messy. That's where authenticity comes from, is being messy and uncomfortable and ugly and sweaty and just, that. So I think that's why I got into acting and why I got into getting more into fitness, is because that made me realize that you can't be your most authentic self if you are trying to fit the image all the time of the face of a movement or the face of something that it's a lot of pressure to have. So that's why I moved into acting and into fitness as well, just because in fitness nobody cares what you look like. You can this morning when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I had my messy bun right here on the front of my head and all my other hair was down. Like, no one cares, because that's not how you get respect in that industry, and acting as well. You can be a pretty face in acting, but if you don't have the grit and you're not putting in the work, like that vulnerable side, and really opening up your heart and soul, you don't go anywhere,
And that's very important to know your vulnerabilities and talk about them with people who you trust, because that's what's going to make you stronger in the end. And also it's a sign of trust. My vulnerability, honestly, is my speech. And that's why I'm going to speech therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I do have maybe two personalities in me, but one is seemingly winning over the other one in recent years. So I'm coming from that like super introverted, nerdy kind of person. And then I kind of grew out of it, and now I'm taking up all those like social activities and skills which are coming from just being out there and being yourself and conveying yourself and having all those energy exchanges and all those skills which are not usually used by a person who would be doing like nerdy stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I do get this kind of vibe from you that you understand yourself really well, and you probably know a lot about where your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and you would choose to either work on them, or you would choose to maybe keep them as they are. Genetically, we might be not as far as we would expect to be, given that I was born in a very different geographical location. But also I know that 16% of my DNA is from area that used to be Greece.
Wow.
Back in the day. So I wanted to talk about like what do you know about your like origin? Where is your family from?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for sharing that with me. And I think doing podcasting is such a great way to break through that, that barrier and just accepting it and, seeing kind of where it goes and not shooting for perfection, But yeah, I remember you mentioning that you had some Greek origin, which is really cool. I don't meet many people who have that. And yeah, so for me, growing up, I am 25% Greek, 25% Black, 25% Mexican, and 25% white.
What?
I know.
That's amazing.
It's something that I have learned to love, you know? I think growing up, I loved it. I love all my cultures. It's so cool being able to have one grandparent of every race. You know, if you put all four of them next to each other, it's one full Black grandpa, one full Greek grandma from Greece, Athens, one Mexican grandma, and then one white grandpa. And it's just, they all look completely different. And I am the bloodline. I am the result of that all coming together. So, now I've chose to embrace it. Right now I'm learning how to make authentic dishes from all of my cultures and making it vegetarian. Wow. So that's been a fun little hobby of mine. But growing up, I feel like I struggled with that a little bit.
Okay.
I grew up in Mountain View, which is a predominantly white area.
Yes.
And
basically being non-white is, unusual.
Exactly. I was one of 3 Black women, Black girls at my elementary school. It's tough too because being 25%, being being just a touch of everything makes it hard for me to feel like I belong anywhere.
Oh, okay.
So, if I was half, I'd feel different, where I could identify with 2 different identities equally. But since I'm a quarter of everything, it feels strange to identify fully in one area. So if I were to say I'm a Greek woman, that feels weird because I'm not just Greek. If I say I'm a Black woman, which I do say because I think physically that's what the category that I've always been thrown in.
They just haven't seen too many Greek people. You have Greek nose, 100%.
100% the Greek nose. My which is my grandmother, it's Greek, grandmother in Greek, and she always says, "My Brienitsa," is her accent. Oh, your nose so beautiful, never change, because a lot of Greek people get their nose done when they get used to the Eurocentric beauty standards
as soon
here.
As they move out of Greece.
Yeah, exactly, and they come here and realize that a beautiful ethnic nose is not seen as beautiful here all the time. And it's unfortunate, and that's why I think it is so important to embrace those parts of you that you don't love, or that this society has made us believe are not good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like even for you, like, I think you have a really awesome voice, right? And you use it all the time. You showing up in acting and doing stuff like this. I think that's incredible. And you said you even got a role, or you were going out for a role that was calling for a voice like yours as well.
Specifically, they were looking for Eastern European looking guy with Eastern European accent. So that's about accent. But in communication and in understanding, accent is not the biggest. It's more like of a spice.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not the biggest, blocker from understanding.
Mm-hmm.
If your tempo is right, and if you speak with fluency, if you say some words in a bit weird way, that's not really a problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's why some people can turn on and off accent, and you still will be able to understand them. Mm-hmm. But it's more about the fluency part. It's more about having enough of breath to support whatever you want to say, putting pauses where they need to be, and keep the tempo consistent.
Oh,
without those like stretching or accelerating unnecessarily. Less is more, which means the slower you speak, the better people usually will understand you. And this applies to not just acting, but any kind of like speaking abilities, public speaking and whatnot. Usually, if you can deliver the same speech in at 80% of the speed, it will come with a better understanding, better comprehension of that idea, even though you probably will spend a couple more minutes on delivering the speech.
Mm. Yeah.
So
yeah.
But thank you for the compliment.
Yeah. That's interesting that you explained that. I think me growing up, since I've been here my whole life, I've never really thought about the importance of slowing down your words or speeding them up or having certain pauses. So yeah, that's really interesting to hear about. And yeah, I think it's interesting in acting too, because that's one thing that's translated over is when I was doing public speaking, I would talk very slow.
Yes.
On purpose.
On purpose.
Yeah, very slow. And I would make sure that I emphasize certain words. So I would talk like this. Mm-hmm. Because when you talk like this, it sounds more important. I could be saying something crazy like, your shoe is untied. Like, that sounded like a very important point I just made. Mm-hmm. Although if I said, oh, your shoe's untied, and then I kept going, it would just be thrown into, the realm of kind of whatever else I was saying. So that's a really interesting point, and I think that that's something as actors, it's important to recognize our cadences and how it relates to the essence of the role that we're playing, So if we are talking very slow, that's going to translate into a role that is a lot more chill, a lot more calm, has a lot more patience or a lot more going on in their head even. And if you talk fast, that translates over completely differently. So that's...
Yeah, like anxiety or like high stakes, high emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so interesting. Never thought of that.
Yeah, that's the wonderful world of communication.
Yeah.
And that's also a skill, which, you can definitely train in yourself. You can make a lot of money by knowing how to properly communicate. Mm-hmm. You see, so that's whole career you can make off if you are extremely good. If you are extremely good at anything, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah, some people spend their whole lives trying to figure out how to communicate too, which is so interesting.
Yeah. You mentioned that you went into acting because you felt like you need a bridge from like public speaking. Mm-hmm. How did you learn about First Take? It's First Take Acting School. Like, I joined in January, so it's my first year of the acting journey. You probably joined earlier, I guess. So tell us a bit more.
Yeah, so I joined First Take Acting in October, at the end of October of 2021. So I've been with First Take for a little bit over a year, and I actually heard about it because acting is something I was always interested in trying growing up. And I was going to try it when I was in college, but I took the different path and I started doing legislative work and government work, and where I kind of realized that I couldn't do both, and I couldn't explore my creative side and be messy and be weird and do all this and still have the type of, not authority, but the type of importance, like the way that I moved through that world wasn't going to be the same if people in that world knew that I was different. They wouldn't take me as seriously, which is the unfortunate truth of it all. So when I walked away from doing it that intensely, I realized I started doing murals as a kind of a bridge between my creativity and my activism life. And that was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed murals, and it's something that I plan to get back into pretty soon. But when I was doing murals, I was like, this isn't messy enough for me. I need some more opportunities to just explore myself and my own emotions and not be trapped in this box of being a podium girl where I am the face of different movements in a way where I couldn't advocate for myself. I was doing a lot of advocating for other people, and I loved it. But anyways, so at that point in time, I just finished, I did a mural for Santa Clara County and NAACP. It was the first mural ever that they did in collaboration. I was so honored to do that, but I wanted more. So I looked up a bunch of different acting schools, did a bunch of different research, and I came across First Take. I sat in on a class, and it was after my 9 to 5, which I'm currently a firmware engineer. So, which I understand when you talk about...
You know, I never said it. Yeah. I was thinking all you do is basically kicking people's butts in the gym. You're a firmware engineer, really?
I am, yes, during my day. So when you were talking about having the introverted and you're searching for more social things, totally understood that. And that's why another reason as to why I wanted to explore that side of it. But yeah, so I sat in on my class. I was after a long day of coding, and then I went to the gym, went straight into this class. I had no idea what to expect, and I absolutely loved it. My first class was with Robert Wu, super, super great instructor, but that time didn't work, so I ended up switching into Danny's class. And so I stayed with Danny for, I'd say, about 7 months. And then that time didn't end up working. It stopped working for me, so I needed to switch again. And I switched into Susan's class for a while, and now in Jonathan's class with you. So it's been a lot of fun, and I've been super grateful to be able to experience so many different instructors at First Take, on top of doing casting director workshops, and I did a handful of short films and whatnot as well. And now I'm super fortunate to be assigned to an agency. So it's been a wild road up to this point, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the masterclass has in store for me, and just seeing how much more grit I'm going to find in myself from being in a class like that.
As I mentioned in the last episode, we are doing this at the Bravemakers studio in Redwood City, which I want to be the Hollywood of Bay Area, based on location and based on how much of filmmaking happening here. It's a non-profit organization. If anyone is passionate about filmmaking, about acting, about being part of the film industry, check out Bravemaker's website. Charitable organization supporting filmmaking, every donation is tax deductible. anyways, Briena, back to you. So you are transitioning to next class. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So there is the master prep, and then there is the master. But also you are moving to LA. So how do you feel about this change in your life? You probably know enough about LA because you are prepared to move there. How do you feel?
Oh man, I am nervous. I think any big change, I always get this resistance to do it. I always feel an emotional and mental pushback from this decision. But every time I feel this way, I have to remember that in those moments where you're feeling resistance, that's when you have to do it.
That's where the growth happens, yes.
Yes, that's where the growth happens because, I don't know, it's a new city. I've lived in the Bay Area my entire life. And moving away from the family out here and moving closer to my other family in LA is a huge shift, but I think it's something I'm comfortable with and will be once I get my feet planted out there. So I'm feeling pretty good about it overall. And I'm really just moving out there to be closer to my family.
Oh.
But I am also going to pursue acting out there as well. One thing about LA that I've come to understand is that LA isn't necessarily a discovering point. You don't necessarily get discovered there. More so, you build connections and network, and it's more of a landing spot, a place where you land once you are established in the industry.
All right.
So for me, I see this less as an opportunity to just blow up or whatever. It's more so an opportunity I would rather be the least experienced person in the room than the most experienced person in the room. And by all means, I don't feel like I'm the most experienced person out here, but I think
there are only two of us in this room. So.
There's only two of us, yeah.
So I think you can claim that.
No, I think, the Bay Area doesn't really have too many acting opportunities. There are jobs out here, but it's just a whole different ballgame in LA. It's so much more saturated. Everybody is acting out there versus out here, it's all tech related. You'll ask a person... We could walk outside and be like, "What do you do from 9 to 5?" "Oh, I'm an engineer." "Oh, I'm
a firmware engineer."
Yeah.
So
I'm guilty.
That also means that you're going to give up your firmware engineering position?
Yes.
Oh, that's a big change. Yeah.
It's a big change, a huge jump. I'm going to continue personal training out there, but just trying to embrace the idea of not getting too comfortable. And being in my firmware engineering job, it's something I've been doing for 3 years. I feel very comfortable there. And I've learned from acting and from personal training that life, growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable. It happens right outside the comfort zone. It sounds super cliche, but it's totally true. And when you start feeling too comfortable, that's when you need to move on. And that's exactly what I feel very comfortable here, and I'm so grateful for that. But I know that pursuing acting in LA is going to be the most uncomfortable thing I could possibly do in the industry at this point in time.
Oh yeah, I can even tell you where it's going to start. As soon as you start to get to experience this traffic on a daily basis, you'll probably hate it already.
Yeah.
And then, I mentioned I used to live in LA, and back then I was pursuing. Well, firstly, it was a bit of an illusion that LA is the place where everything is just amazing, And that when you come there, it definitely feels like it's everything is sugar coated and it's just a candy. Parties nonstop, this glorified California, big life and so on, It's the LA. And I was going there because I thought I'm going to be a professional athlete, specifically in powerlifting.
Oh, wow.
And it actually was going well because, I was working with somebody who was really well established and acclaimed in the industry, and it was going well for me to the point where I had to make choices around my health. And that's kind of, I figured out that spending some time in LA and understanding that, firstly, my initial impression and my initial expectation of this place is wildly different from what I actually experienced there. And now when I don't really want to go that hard on becoming, like the strongest in my weight class, what's there for me, what's left for me. And that's how I moved to Bay Area after this. But clearly, if you are in the industry of like filmmaking, then I mean, LA is probably the biggest market of the world. Well, maybe after or somewhere around Bollywood, because of how much Bollywood is producing. But I don't think you want to move to India.
I know. I'm already nervous to move to LA. I think India would be.
This is just only it's like 400 miles away.
Yeah, it's like a 45-minute flight.
Yeah,
it's insane. But yeah, that's so interesting that you were doing powerlifting. Powerlifting is not easy, and it's such a long journey where you see yourself move forward and fall back and move forward and fall back time and time again. What do you think that taught you about, like, I don't know, life?
I mean, it was more of a lifestyle. Like, honestly, one of my inspirations and one of the people I look up to, and somebody actually met in real life, is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Wow.
Yeah. And even though, you can think whatever you want about how good he is as an actor or as a politician, he definitely achieved a lot. Mm-hmm. And starting from where he was, like he showed up in this country without pretty much any means of achieving success, except having his determination and having his, grit, as you say, desire to just put everything he had towards achieving his goals. So I don't know how much of it is true. It's basically, the stuff which I read about him, the stuff he talks about. When he came to this, that was a while ago, but when he came to the United States, he didn't even have like any meaningful visa to stay. It's him and his buddy, gym buddy, they started a company which was their cash cow. It was a construction company. And then he was working for 6 to 8 hours doing construction, which was paying the bills. Then he was spending 3 to 4 hours in his acting school. Like another 3 to 4 hours every day in his gym, couple hours working on his accent. And then, you have 6 hours to sleep, so you have to sleep faster. This is his famous.
Well, I say just sleep a little faster.
Just his mindset is what inspired me all the time. And, for me, the sports and specifically powerlifting, just my body composition is, very conducive of being strong. I have a lot of type A fibers. This fitness lifestyle is basically, it's a mindset. It's basically, yes, I know that I can pull that weight. How about I just throw extra 5 pounds on top of it? Mm-hmm. Can I do it? Can I prove myself that I got stronger? Mm-hmm. You see, it's a very controlled way of growing, so to say. You also bring in another thing about powerlifting. It's all about the technique. It's not just brute force. Yes, you can maybe get to some good results just by being physically gifted, but pulling something which is remarkable requires a lot of dedication and knowing exactly all the angles, all the tightening techniques, all the joints, all the breathing techniques and whatnot. So it's all about understanding your nervous system and your musculature. That's whole lifestyle of a person who falls back to his gym attitude and workout discipline to achieve all the other things in life. In fitness and in powerlifting, it's all about the technique. It's all about trying the very same trying for the very same result in different ways. And then you see which of those ways is more efficient. So essentially, if you figure out a way which is more efficient for your body, this will give you higher potential for growth. You know?
Yeah.
So if you find a way to be more efficient, you can lift heavier weights.
I've always been interested in powerlifting. Right now I just do weightlifting, so I don't I do it more so for, like, I like to be strong, but yeah, I've never really thought about being strong enough to be at that level. You know what I mean? But that would be cool. Yeah. And it's cool, like what you said about finding a technique that works for you and your body. I think that is really, that's what a lot of creative people say about their craft too.
Yeah.
You know, like we're the nerds here. We've had a life of being in a desk and doing things one way over and over and over again because it works, you know? But that's the beauty of acting and fitness and even dancing or singing, anything creative. Sometimes it's not the way that everybody does it that's going to work for you. You know, like if everyone is, I don't know, they're deadlifting conventional a certain way with a certain grip, everybody at the competition, right? But, you know, now I'm not super equipped in the way that the competitions work, but, you know, a difference in technique might be the difference between you doing good and you doing absolutely phenomenal and even surprising yourself. So that's cool.
So in competition, first they check for particular angles, execution of the lift. So if we're talking about deadlifting, then you have to be fully extended. You know, like they're checking, you know, if you are actually standing straight. And then in this fully extended position, you need to stay for several seconds for the lift to be counted. So every tiny things where you underperform a tiny bit, you know, which you probably don't care about in the gym because you're more like, can I do 10 of them, right? There, it's important. It's a difference between, you know, you having the lift or you are missing the lift.
Wow. So it is really like specific.
Very specific, yes.
Ooh.
But also where I think you are hitting the nail on the head is, if you're pulling conventional, then trying new things and new ways of like pulling the very same weight. You know, try pulling sumo. You know, try pulling, you know, in deficit, or try doing, you know, pin pulls. You know, try doing, you know, some other kind of pulling motion, which is not about, you know, pulling from the ground, but like good mornings are good, you know, for that. Or, you know, there are all the machines which can mimic some way of pulling from the ground and so on. So there is lots of carryover in strength. There are different human species, and that's mind-blowing. If you there is a wonderful book. It's called History of Sapiens. It basically talks about the history of human species over the past of million years, and the research. There is plenty of research, plenty of, you know, like peer-reviewed, you know, summarization and whatnot. There are 4 distinct human species living on this planet still. You know, Sapiens is only one of them. Sapiens, though, dominates because of multiple waves of migration out of Africa and just mixing with all the others. So when you say you're 25% of each of the races, basically means that you have, well, yes, you probably have some meaningful, some reasonable amount of DNA coming from all 4 of the species, human species. My father is about as dark as you.
Oh, wow.
And maybe even darker. My mom, though, is super white because she's the Viking. She's coming from this Nordic. This is where my strength is coming from. Very like Nordic, very like, you know, like blonde, blue eye and so on stuff. That's why I'm so white. You see, but this whiteness is primarily the Neanderthal DNA, because everything is mixed now. But also the future is that everyone will be even more mixed.
That makes sense.
So basically, the way you are mixed right now, it's basically you are looking like the future human.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. I think there's some cultural pressure from certain areas to stay within their own ethnicity or culture. And before, actually, it wasn't until 2003 that interracial marriages were legal in every single state in the United States. There was one state that didn't allow it. I believe it was somewhere in the north, Alabama. There was one state. I'll come back with that, but basically, I did a whole report in college on this because I really wanted to explore the idea of being interracial and multiracial and how that affects mental health and the way people are socialized and just the way they show up in the world. And yeah, I found that it wasn't really accepted until lately, you know, and that is a big part in media. For example, Bridgerton, you look at Bridgerton, right? Yeah. Bridgerton has a mixed ethnicity, mixed race couple as like the main, the leads. So you see stuff like that, and subconsciously we as humans, we're socialized by media. We're socialized by people older than us or around us in our environment. So to be able to see, physically see it and visualize it and it to become a normal thing, it's no surprise that people are becoming more open to the idea of interracial relationships in general, which has been a really beautiful thing for me to see growing up, because I thought it was so different being as mixed as I was in my hometown, that when I turn on the TV and I see a Cheerios commercial with a black mother and a white father, I'm like, like it feels comforting. I feel comforted. Like the media is giving me a big hug and telling me that everything that I was raised to believe is not the beauty. Like it doesn't have to be the norm anymore. Yeah. You know, even with, you see a lot of actresses that look like me that are making it, like Zendaya, Zoe Saldana, Zoe Kravitz. Like, you see people and it feels really refreshing to see people who are, you know, they have braids, they have curly hair. They're really stepping into who they are at their core and not falling into what it used to be, which was just having straight, long hair. And that was part of the culture. So I think that's a really beautiful thing that's happening in media right now. And it's why representation in this industry is so important. So yeah, I enjoy that. And I like how even the Bay Area out here is showing different roles with different people as well. Yeah. It's really cool.
You have an agent, and you probably, I don't know how much you can talk about details, but you can definitely, talk about how you were preparing for the roles, because that's where a lot of homework is happening, and this is where the actual acting skill is how you translate just, the lines with a bit of instruction on the script into actually being this character, which might be even different from how the screenwriter imagine this character, but still it's so natural and fluent and entertaining.
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and we definitely can get in on that even deeper on another session. But right now, I think just kind of covering over that, I think the most entertaining roles are the ones where you can find a piece of yourself in it. All of the roles that I've auditioned for or I've done, my favorite ones are always the roles that challenge who I think I am. So I remember one role I had, it was, even like the ones we do in class, right? The ones where I'm having to be really, really sad about someone I lost, for example. I love those roles. As hard as they are on me emotionally to prepare for, I love them because every time I walk out of that room, I realize a part of me that I neglected or a part of me that I didn't know was there. Like, it even helps me process my own grief of whatever I go through by letting myself like project that into letting my character, that person who is me, take that on. And I think that's the beauty of any role you take. It's like, it doesn't matter if you are exactly what they want. Mm-hmm. What matters is that you're yourself, and that's something that they talk about a lot, but really it feels so much better when you're yourself too. Like every audition that I've done and I was just authentic, and maybe I was like, maybe that's a little bit not what they asked for, but I can walk out of there feeling good because I'm like, that was me. Mm-hmm. And if they don't like that, that's okay. It's just not the role for me.
Yeah, it's just not. Well, they will find somebody else who fits more what they are expecting.
Yeah.
But if they don't expect anything and they just like what you do, then
mm-hmm.
they can cast you. They can hire you.
Yeah, and you can never have a bad audition if you're just yourself. And that goes with everything. You know, you can never have a bad date, a bad interview, a bad interaction. If you just show up as yourself and you have pure intentions and a kind heart going into it, you know, because kindness goes so far. It's incredibly underrated and not talked about enough in this industry where so many people are trying to make it. At the end of the day, I can't imagine a scenario where someone makes it from a place that isn't kindness and where they feel good about that, you know? And maybe that's just like because the communities I used to work with, I worked really closely with the unhoused community of San Jose and getting them housing and students as well who were unhoused. So I've been able to see what the lowest of the lows look like for some people and help them get out of it. So, you know, to see people in the industry, or I haven't seen this personally, actually, I'm very grateful. The Bay Area is so welcoming, but to know that that's out there, especially when I moved to LA, I just know it exists. I can't wrap my head around that concept when I know the other side of it, where there are people just struggling to stay alive every day. And that kindness can be translated everywhere you go. So yeah, just one little spiel.
LA will give you all the spectrum.
Yeah.
Go to what's the name of it? Skid Row.
Oh yeah.
You will see struggle.
Yeah, I wanted to work there for a while actually, but yeah, it's very taxing emotionally to do that all the time.
Yeah. And then, you know, if we're talking about roles, like the one that I learned a lot from, and which probably I will never forget, is the 911 role, remember?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh.
Honestly, that one sucked in the sense that I had to go through a lot of this, like, horror and grief preparing for it. But it's also a huge learning experience for me.
Yeah, that was incredible. Your scene was incredible. I remember Jonathan was like, that was the best. That was the best one I've seen.
Remember, we've done it like 3 or 4 times in a row. And in different ways as well.
That was heavy. I definitely, all 3 of us were outside. I was literally in the corner crying. Yeah. Michelle's hands in her head, or head in her hands, like. Yeah.
But also the one which I found the most amusing and entertaining was, you were also there, where I was playing a blind girl, remember?
Whoa.
And you were the police officer.
I was. That one was hard.
That was hard, yeah.
Yeah. That one was good, though. I definitely, I felt like, that was my first scene ever in class, too. It's crazy.
Okay, we should talk more about the scenes and the acting, for sure.
Okay.
We can do, like, episode two with you.
Let's do that.
Let's close for now, and it's getting dark, and we're running out of batteries for in everything recording. So,
Yes.
Folks, this was amazing. Briena Brown, her Instagram is here. She kicks ass, literally, and also in a lot of other ways. Find her at this MMA, UFC
Sunnyvale.
Sunnyvale, yes. For the class in BJJ, right?
In HIT.
Oh, yeah, high intensity interval training.
Yes.
And also stay tuned for her being on big screen as soon as she moves to LA. Do you have anything to say, like in the closing line for everybody who listens to us?
I just want to say, first of all, thank you for bringing me here. I'm so grateful to have another opportunity to use my voice. I think that's something that people don't feel they deserve. So if you're listening to this, just know that your voice matters, and whatever you're trying to do, whether that's in the creative realm, whether that's in your workplace, in your relationships, in your friendships, whatever that looks like, your voice matters. And if you show up and you're authentic and you just do everything you can with an open heart, you will never fail. So thanks again for bringing me on. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and stay tuned for episode 2 where we're going to get geeky around acting. Yeah.
Super.
All right, Sublime Podcast at the wonderful studio of Bravemaker. Thank you, Bravemaker, for having us.